Happy freaking Thursday and welcome to the Eat, Slay, Live, Daily Grow with myself, Todd Locks, the People's Champ. Holy crap, I think we did all that without any technical difficulties or delays. A few things to talk about today. First of all, yesterday I was talking about the power of now, and when you have an idea or a plan or something like that, just to jump on it and go. Because the vibe is just right. Well, I got a text from one of my buddies who's kind of been around for the entire journey of Pride Fit. And he's like, you're saying the power like of right now of just jumping on a plan? He goes, all the times you were looking for buildings or implementing different things at Pride, it always took you so long, like these little bitty baby steps. You dip your toe in and you go back and forth. Well, we laughed about it. He was joking, of course, but he's kind of right. And I was thinking about that is, you know what, I've talked about my relationship with God on here is I'm a prayer. I mean, I have pray big tattooed on my arm. And I'll tell you what, I just kind of sounds cheesy and it sounds preachy and that, but I'm a prayer and I just kind of put things in God's hands. And if he says, jump right now and go, I just sort of, I feel like he will always guide me in the right direction. And that's kind of why some things I just take my time on. Like, I mean, I probably, when I started Pride Fitness in my yard, I probably was there 2.5 years, but 1 year in, I started looking for a place and we found all these great places and I just wouldn't pull the trigger on them. And a lot of people think I was scared, but I just felt like that God would sort of tell me when it was right. And he did. Now, with that, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and the thing about rejection came up, and with that, I also had a young person who's gotten a hold of me after listening to my podcast, who has a good idea for, I call it a business, and she keeps taking it to different people who are sort of in that sort of business. And they just keep rejecting her with it. And she has these great ideas, but just keeps getting rejected. And she kind of asking me for advice on it. And that was with a podcast that I hear with some advice about that. And I'll get to that in a second. Now I'm going to talk about sort of my own rejection with Pride Fitness. I remember when I first started it, it was kind of like on a Monday, I'm just kind of standing in my garage, no clients, don't know really what to do, how to go about doing it. And then, so I applied for a training job in Chicago, Illinois. I don't know why I had to say Illinois. I think that's pretty explanatory. But I applied for this job in Chicago. I'd already been training some UFC guys, some athletes and things like that. And I thought I'm a shoo-in for this job. I thought it was just kind of time for a change to get out of here. I thought I'm a shoo-in for this job up in Chicago, going up to be with my buddy Bob Yosey up there. And so I wait around, and I start building some momentum with Pride. And they ended up rejecting me for that job up there. And I was just like, I was devastated. I was like, what? I'm overqualified for this. Why would you not give me this position? So fast forward a little bit, Pride gets to rolling. I'm about 6 months or a year into it, and I get an offer to kind of relocate a little bit and just go work exclusively with fighters, like how I'd kind of gotten my start. And man, after a lot of praying and things, I didn't have a lot of time to make that, but I built some momentum with Pride. And I knew going to do this other gig with fighters would be, kind of escalate my name and thing. And I end up rejected that position. It was a tough call, but I just, I'd started my journey with some people in fitness, Don Flack and Leslie Reams, and I feel like I was really invested in them, and they were invested in me as personal training clients, and I didn't want to leave them. And also, I just, I decided to bet on myself at the time. Okay, I just, I knew this other job was great, and I could do some amazing things with who I was going to be working with, and I rejected it, and I knew I would always second doubt that, still to this day a little bit. I lost a good friend out of that for about a year. He didn't talk to me. I'm not going to mention his name, but if he's listening, he knows who I'm talking about. He was really mad I didn't take the position. I just decided to bet on myself. Now, I can remember tough search trying to find a new location for Pride when I was in my yard, in my garage. And I remember a couple times trying to get a certain building for it and got rejected. Somebody else got it before us. And I was just devastated. I'm like, I'm never going to find a place. Same thing. We were trying to find a place down here. But you know what? It turned out for the best. And in this podcast I was listening to, they were talking about, let's go to our sponsor real quick. So have you ever decided when to start a business and you needed a logo, you just didn't know where to look, and trying to do that online thing where you're talking to somebody over in Pakistan, or you don't have any direction? Our sponsor right now is Full Deck Print and Design. They can help you with logos, marketing materials, things. You got a trailer you need wrapped. They do great work. Look at this right here. This is Full Deck. Work truck, you want to get your business put on your work truck for branding. Look at this. Your crotch rocket, they can do crotch rockets too. If you're starting a new business, like Dorothy's Tea Room down in East Alton, which is a great place, go check it out. Tell Emmy I sent you down there. They can do signs. They can give you marketing material like stickers and things like that. Even our old friends down at Atomic Pinball, they use them to come up with their logo, and you can see a little marketing sign here. I thought this was a great idea. Tattoo Place has a scratch-off games. Full Deck can do that. So check out Full Deck for all your branding and logo needs if you're thinking about starting a company. Anyway, I had been rejected for many things, for buildings, for positions. I had rejected positions myself. But this podcast I was listening to yesterday, it said, and I love this, write this down. Rejection is God's protection. Rejection is God's protection. So, a lot of these things, like you've been rejected in a relationship, you've been turned down from a job, you've been let go from a job. That's God telling you, hey, that's not for you. We got something better. We got something bigger for you. I look at all those things that sort of I was rejected from, like when I was starting Pride, and those weren't right for me. The buildings that we didn't get would have never worked. We could have never handled the kind of volume that we have right now. Like the job I could have taken in Chicago that I got rejected for. I don't know what the outcome would have been, but I can't imagine that I would be happier than I am right now. The job that I didn't take working with fighters, I don't know how that would have turned out. Well, actually I do, because that ended up going belly up, long story short. But what happened was, what the rejection was God protecting me, saying, hey, I have bigger and better things from you. Just follow my lead. And after hearing that podcast, I feel like I hadn't given the young person who had gotten a hold of me, who keeps getting her ideas rejected to different businesses and companies. When I heard that podcast, I automatically sent that text about rejection is God protection. I did not take credit for it, by the way, and I wish I knew who said it. It was who said it on that podcast. But so just remember that some of the things, if you lose a job, if a relationship ends, if you don't get a position that you wanted, just remember that there could be something better waiting for you. Like on our last building that we were at, we ended up having to get out of there. And, I probably would have stayed in that building forever. I probably would have. We couldn't have grown. We couldn't have done the many things that we do here. I wouldn't have this podcast studio if I would have stayed there. And when that happened, when we had to leave there, I thought it was the worst thing in the world. I was almost just done with Pride Fitness. I was ready to just hop in a van and start traveling the country. But you know what? Looking back and getting kicked out of there, that was the kick in the arse that I freaking needed to move on to bigger things. Or I would have just waited around my entire life just staying in that one place. So remember that. Sometimes the things that we don't get is what we need the most. Remember, rejection is God's protection. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for growing with us, and slay on. Happy Thursday, everybody.